Merry Christmas, everyone. This year we're being visited by the ghost of Christmas past and taking a look at another mysterious tape from deep within my memory box. This one has the snazzy title of Upside Down E210B, so you know we're in good hands here. To be honest, I'm not even sure what's on this tape, but I do know it dates all the way back to December in the mystical year of 2000. And since it's Christmas, we're going to dive down the VHS chimney and unwrap the whole thing. The tape starts off with huge metal spikes, grinding wheels, deadly chainsaws. What kind of death trap is this? Well, it can only be the childhood sensory overload that was Robot Wars. First broadcast in 1998 on the UK TV channel BBC Two, Robot Wars was the first show to bring the fledgling sport of robot combat to the small screen, as pioneered by American special effects artist Mark Thorpe in the early 90s, who sadly passed away in November 2023. The concept was simple. Teams would come together to build a radio-controlled robot, fight in a specially designed battle arena filled with hazards, and smash each other to bits with a series of deadly weapons. If you managed to disable your opponent's robot, either by destroying it, dropping it into the pit, or flipping it out of the arena, you won. But if the fight went the distance, the winner would be decided by a panel of 3 judges, who were usually experts in the field of robotics and engineering. The competitors would also have to contend with the house robots, evil machines twice their size who lived in the corners of the arena and would destroy anything that strayed into their path. There was Dead Metal, Shunt, Matilda, Sergeant Bash, the enormous Sir Killalot, and Refbot, because even the most psychotic family needs someone sane to keep them in order. Now, Robot Wars is one of the first shows I can ever remember watching, and it was a huge part of my childhood. Right from the moment I saw that huge spiked mace swinging towards me, my eyes were glued to the screen. I had the toys, the video games, and a whole bunch of other stuff. In fact, I even own 2 pieces of the actual arena floor from the show. Yes, the real thing. Think these are worth something? I used to get my parents to tape Robot Wars all the time for me, and the episode on this tape is taken from the 4th season of the show, which was hosted by Craig Charles of Red Dwarf fame.
Time to unleash the dogs of war, and boy, are they rabid. Hey, let the wars begin!
No one said it better. Every week, 6 robots would compete for a place in the top 16 at the end of the series, and in the first round, 3 robots had to battle together in a melee, with 2 going through and 1 being sent home in pieces. Let's take a look at the competitors. First up is Arnold Terminegger, a bot with a set of lifting forks at the front to flip opponents over, and no prizes for guessing who inspired this one. Next is Rambot, which does exactly what it sounds like by ramming head-on into everything. And then there's Bearmoth, the seeded robot in this fight, making it the favourite. This was a long-time competitor armed with a huge lifting scoop, and one of my favourites back in the day. There's just something fun about seeing a bot getting flipped over on its back like a turned turtle. Also the best robot to use in the video game on the PS2. Just saying. There's definitely a lot of flipping in this fight, with all 3 robots getting lifted, tossed, rammed. They're just all over the place.
Bearmoth, seated number 6, on the attack again, with the classic warning yellow and black side stripes and chevrons. Rambot, this time with an attack using the spikes, bashes against the arena wall. Bearmoth attacking Arnold Terminegger. Rambot in underneath Arnold. Bearmoth, let's try to lift. Rambot, this is great stuff.
The commentary for Robot Wars was provided by Jonathan Pierce, perhaps best known for his football commentary, and he was easily the right choice, always bursting with enthusiasm.
Oh, Kilohertz is flipped up on his side! This is amazing stuff! Great stuff! Kilohertz is on his back, oh lovely! Lovely, you can see the belly of Kilohertz!
I don't know where he gets the energy from. It's actually a very close fight, and ends up going to the judges, who vote out Rambot for not showing enough control.
The decision's in. Rambot has been eliminated.
I guess that's what you get for the slam your head into a brick wall approach. But on to the next melee. We have Judge Shred, another lifter bot, with a team that always wore judges' wigs because why wouldn't you? There's Exterminator, the other favourite in this episode, which was armed with both an axe and a tiny spatula weapon that was probably only good for flipping burgers.
Huh! Oh, look, a flipper! The spatula's stupid.
But the ultimate cannon fodder reward has to go to Millennium Bug, a walking robot named after the infamous computer glitch. Most bots run on wheels, and had to be under 80 kilos at the time, but if you built one with legs, you also got to be twice as heavy, and also twice as slow.
Actually quicker than the walkers in the last series. Developments have been made. Very interesting. They're up to 4 miles an hour. I know it's not startling. There you go.
Still, the team seemed in good spirits, and they even had their own special victory celebration.
So chaps, if you join with me, this is the celebration.
But when you put a bot that can barely move into a vicious battle arena, what do you think is going to happen?
Poor old Millennium, Exterminator 2, and now Judge Dredd 2. They came in with a pincer movement to roll Millennium Bug over. And I can't think there's any way back now for the Millennium Bug.
Ouch. It's almost cruel the way Exterminator just picks the legs off before Judge Shred flips it. This is when the house robots would close in for lunch, and they definitely have themselves a good meal.
A Millennium Bug onto the arena floor flipper! Oh, they didn't even bounce right way up.
That's one squashed bug. While the teams would repair their bots for the next round, this season also had a small side competition called the Pinball Warrior Tournament, a crazy obstacle course where robots would have to score as many points as possible by knocking down barrels, hitting targets, you get the idea. And I love the look of this place, what a great set. I wish my living room was like this. The competitor in this episode was Firestorm, one of my personal favourite robots, but it ends up slipping and sliding all over the place in this run. It's like it's skating on ice.
They're too slow here, Firestorm. Bash into Matilda. Matilda guarding the target. They're trying to get in underneath Matilda now. Firestorm. Good defensive work by Tildy, protecting the 50 points. And not enough from Firestorm in the end.
In fact, it only scores enough points to end up on the middle of the leaderboard. Maybe pinball isn't their game. Back to the main competition, and now it's one-on-one right to the end. Bearmoth fights Judge Shred, and it's over in seconds when Bearmoth flips the judge like a pancake before the house robots close in.
Well, the judicial system of Robot Wars sees the scales of justice weighing heavily against the judges. They're out!
Talk about a public execution. Meanwhile, Exterminator takes on Arnold, and it looks like there might be a surprise when Exterminator gets stuck on its side.
Arnold Terminator has flipped Exterminator! Will this be the surprise? No!
But they were smart enough to design a way to get back down again, and push Arnold around enough to win on a judge's decision.
Based on style, control, damage and aggression. And they've gone for Exterminator!
Kind of a shame for Arnold, really, as it wasn't doing too badly. But hey, not bad for a piece of old junk you'd find at the bottom of your garden. So the two favourites meet in the Heat final, where Exterminator swaps out the axe for that tiny little spatula. I'm sure that'll go well for them.
Bearmoth immediately turns him up and over. Bearmoth is the bigger of the two robots, slightly the heavier and certainly the more aggressive.
Uh-oh, it looks like Bearmoth is all over Exterminator in this one, but then suddenly, Bearmoth seems to start suffering from some kind of drive issue, and shockingly, Exterminator actually starts lifting Bearmoth and taking control of the fight.
Bearmoth started the strong. Exterminator has come back very well, and I would guess he's now on top.
Yes, a huge bulldozer blade is getting beaten by a spatula.
Proof! A flipper.
Still, it was close, so it goes to the judges.
Bearmoth, the 6 seeds are out! It's Exterminator! Come on!
So Exterminator is the surprise winner, and I guess if there's a moral to this story, it's that a burger flipper is a hell of a lot more effective than you might think. That's Robot Wars for you.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it for Exterminator! Well, it's the show that Alice Cooper ignores. He can't do heavy metal like Robot Wars. Bye-bye.
It's easy to see why this concept still has an enduring legacy even after all this time. Robot combat is fun, unique, and it's just so immersing to watch this kind of engineering challenge play out in such an entertaining way. I can barely unscrew a jar and I still find it great fun to see how it evolves. But unfortunately, Robot Wars is no longer around, having been cancelled by the BBC in early 2018 after a somewhat underwhelming revival. However, its American counterpart, Battlebots, is still going strong in its 7th season now, and highly recommended by me. Over 20 years on, the robots have become significantly more powerful, with flippers that can toss bots into the ceiling, vertical spinners splitting opponents into pieces, and my personal favourite, the deadly hammer saw of Sawblaze, which goes straight through bots like a hot knife through butter and puts them up in flames. If this is your kind of destruction, then check it out. You could just be watching the sport of the future. Now, we'd better get back to the tape, and it was always kind of funny how underwhelming everything on BBC Two felt after watching Robot Wars. You've just seen these robots tearing each other apart, and now we have promos for things like people walking around in fields, and gardening programs, and stuff like that.
A gardening double bill with the Curious Gardeners, followed by a new series of Gardener's World in half an hour on BBC Two.
It just feels out of place. So next up is a quote-unquote real sport, and it's time for a game of rugby. If you don't know what rugby is, then don't worry, I don't know either. Still, I'm guessing most of you have seen the odd sports broadcast now and then, only this one has the weirdest intro I've ever seen in my life. Yes, because when I think of a bunch of muscle men throwing a ball around a bit of grass, what's really missing is a Star Wars parody to get all the jocks excited. Thankfully, someone changes the channel halfway through this madness, and we're suddenly in the middle of an episode of Watchdog on BBC One. Despite the title, it's not a show about dogs, but more a show where people complain about stuff, like DVDs for instance.
People can't go and buy a DVD machine tomorrow and be sure it'll play every disc, or a disc and be sure it'll play every machine.
Well, the industry is working very, very hard towards that. We have the Worldwide DVD Forum, we have the UK DVD Committee.
Lots of meetings, not much action by the sound of it.
Yes, apparently in the year 2000, some DVD players couldn't play DVDs, even to the point where they needed a Toy Story hotline to console all the traumatized kids who couldn't wrap their heads around the idea of a DVD box set.
Buena Vista, who make the Toy Story box set, by the way, they say they've set up a helpline so you can, if you want to buy that, you can find out if it is compatible with your machine.
Clearly, this is why it's best to stick with VHS. So what other problems did this show cover back then? Well, lying tabloid magazine covers.
OK say they're sorry if they've deceived any readers, and they're offering complimentary copies to disappointed customers.
What else is new? And people's veins clogging up on plane journeys.
A year ago, Marcus Lee was a fit 27-year-old, but now he'll need to take blood-thinning drugs for the rest of his life. Doctors say he was lucky not to have had a fatal pulmonary embolism.
Goodness me, it's Christmas, can't you lighten up a bit? For once, I'm glad the tape cuts out, and now we're right in the middle of Cartoon Network. This tape is really taking us for a ride this time, isn't it? Anyway, since this was recorded at Christmas, we're certainly overloaded with adverts here, so this is probably a good time to give them a closer look. It's pretty amusing to hear the music that was popular at the time, like this ad for an S Club 7 album.
This is S Club 7 and their stunning #1 album, 7.
Ooh, it's like having a bucket of the early 2000s dumped on my head.
Out now.
There were also some big movies out back then, like Pokemon 2000, which was open for previews on the very day this was recorded.
Free with every admission, you can receive the mysterious Ancient Mew game card for the Pokemon trading card game.
Feels like I could go to the cinema and grab that special trading card right now.
Pokemon the Movie 2000.
Chocolate is always popular at Christmas, especially with me, and this ad for the Galaxy Silk Collection makes me more than a little jealous, particularly when it comes to all these milky treats that aren't around anymore.
Locked away on the inside, pulling away now, it's but Port Knox makes the final kick.
And who plays with chocolate like that? Just eat it already.
New Galaxy Silk Collection. Delicious indecision.
Speaking of food, here's an ad for KFC, where the kids' meal came with a bunch of Thunderbirds toys.
A free Thunderbird 4, The Mole, Thunderbird 2, or Virgil Tracy.
Isn't it strange how a puppet show from the 60s somehow retained its popularity well into the early 2000s, purely based on repeats? Quite impressive, all things considered.
With the FAB new KFC Popcorn Chicken Colonel's Kids Meal, we're on our way.
Maybe the video games would have been a bit more modern for kids at the time, like this 102 Dalmatians game.
How could those vile puppies defeat me? It must be your fault!
But was it as good as Toy Story 2? I think not. And finally, there's an ad for fabric softener. Just fabric softener.
New Downy Fabric Enhancer has a clear complex. Unlike softeners which leave a coating on fibres, New Downy penetrates and smooths fibres from within.
That's how you know it's Christmas.
Downy, my clothes, only better.
Maybe we'd better look at a cartoon now, and first up, it's Pinky and the Brain. This one's a classic just for the theme song alone.
The Pinky and the Brain, yes, Pinky and the Brain. One is a genius, the other's insane. They're laboratory mice, their genes have been spliced. They're Pinky and the Brain, brain.
It explains the show, so I don't even have to. This one was all about two laboratory mice, one intelligent and one not so intelligent. Guess which one is which?
Zalgar's late. It must be he who was shot down.
Now he can go to all the sites of New Mexico, like the Statue of Liberty and London.
Brain was the mad scientist mastermind, always scheming to take over the world, dripping in cynicism with his dry Orson Welles-type voice.
Here I am, awaiting the most important contact ever made by an Earthling, and somebody has nothing better to do than watch that silly TV.
Whereas Pinky was the complete opposite, a well-meaning moron with a heart of gold.
Surprise, surprise, surprise!
That is the kind of behavior that got us thrown out of the dining car.
How can you not love him? These two would go on all kinds of crazy adventures, though, strangely, this isn't actually a Christmas episode. Instead, it's a bizarre plot where Brain becomes pen pals with Zalgar, a psychotic alien from outer space who has rather strange plans in mind for Brain when he turns up on Earth for a visit.
He thinks I'm going to help him, but I, Zalgar, plan to trick him and eat his brain.
I love how upfront he is about it. It's like the writers were self-aware of how weird this idea is. I even like how his servants have huge chunks missing out of the backs of their heads. Now that's brain food.
I can almost taste him.
But Brain doesn't take to the thought of getting his mind eaten for lunch, and it becomes a mad chase through all kinds of different locations as Zalgar hunts them down.
You don't even know how to spell cerebrum.
At least I don't put smiley faces on every line.
Oh, yeah? Well, you're a weenie.
They go through Area 51 and meet Bigfoot, smash the Statue of Liberty, and then this happens. Can we just leave it like that? Eventually they manage to escape, and Zalgar gets shot down by a pair of fighter jets.
That is a hit, Night Owl.
And by this point, I'm wondering how I've been able to describe any of this madness. On the weirdness scale for cartoons, Pinky and the Brain are ranking pretty highly here, but it's weird in all the right ways, and I like how every episode just comes full circle, with Brain's evil plan always being exactly the same.
What do we do tomorrow night, Brain?
The same thing we do every night, Pinky. Try to take over the world.
It's like a never-ending story. So, after all that insanity, what's next?
Coming up next, me, Angela Anaconda, and not Minnie Poon and that damn war.
Oh, no. Now, some of you might remember Angela Anaconda from my episode on the VHS of the Digimon movie, which featured a short that made Pinky and the Brain psychotic episode look perfectly rational, but now you're telling me I have to examine the actual show? Wow, what a Christmas treat this tape is shaping up to be.
And now to today's story, starring me, and not starring Nanette Memoir.
Okay, let's try and take an honest look here. I've mentioned this before, but while Angela Anaconda was shown in the US on Fox Kids, here in the UK it was aired on Cartoon Network, and it didn't last long. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if this was one of the few surviving clips of its existence here.
My name is Angela, hello. Welcome to my very own show.
It's really weird too, like when you look at promos for Cartoon Network's lineup at the time and see this show sandwiched in between absolute classics like the Powerpuff Girls and Ed, Edd and Eddy. Yes, right before my all-time favourite cartoon, Angela Anaconda was on. Freaky. But I digress. The general premise revolved around an 8-year-old girl called, well, Angela Anaconda, and that's about as far as I can get before I have to talk about the animation style.
Sorry, Gary Reinhardt, but breaking bubble records is not for the faint of heart or the faint of cheeks.
Of course, art is subjective, but this has to be one of the most unappealing shows to look at that I can recall from this time. The whole newspaper cutout thing never really worked for me, and it just comes off as kind of repulsive, especially when you compare it with the more pleasant character designs of this era. It feels off-putting and it's a bit of a mess, like a nightmare you have as a 6-year-old after eating too many Galaxy chocolates before bed.
You mean perfect obnoxiousness as usual, Minnie Pooh.
The show appears to revolve around Angela's adventures in her hometown, but the only real thing I can latch onto from these episodes is her rivalry with Nanette Manoir, who's kind of like the stuck-up rich girl, and a foil for Angela's more tomboyish personality.
Nanette Manoir? I know. It was totally unnecessary for me to come, but I thought my perfectly trained and obedient purebred French poodle could provide a positive role model for the lesser breeds.
Like in this episode, when Angela and Nanette both get stuck to each other by a wad of chewing gum, a classic sitcom plot.
Angela got gum in my hair! I did not. She got hair in my gum.
Rivalries are certainly ripe for comic potential, and there is some humour to be found here with the banter they have with each other. Some of it's even quite funny.
I have a responsibility. Ow! To the baton-twirling fans of Tapwater Spring. Ow! I am sure all 3 of them can wait.
But at the end of the day, the show is just so hard on the eyes that it's no fun to look at. That seems to be the fundamental problem. In fact, it makes me wonder, if the show had been drawn in a more conventional art style, would that have made it slightly more palatable? Maybe. I guess I'll leave it to the comments section to resolve this one.
Angela Anaconda, excusez-moi, but you stink. Not as much as your manners, nincome ninny.
That's all I can say about the show, really. Not a terrible concept, but the art style lets it down. Time to move on. Promo time now, and being Christmas, Cartoon Network always used to get a bit of a facelift around the holidays. Pretty simple stuff though, just reindeer and Christmas trees for the most part. But there are a few festive treats, like this promo for a bunch of different Christmas specials.
A bumper box of Cartoon Christmas crackers, and no turkeys, because we know you've been good this year. Cartoon Christmas specials, all next week from 1:30 in the afternoon.
What's with this guy though? A creep like this should be hanging out with Angela Anaconda.
Only on the best place for Cartoon Christmas, Cartoon Network.
Then there's this one with a spoiled brat making his wish list for what shows he wants to see.
Oi, Santa, you hairy mug! Here's my Christmas wish. In fact, because there's more than one, it's turned into a list. And I'd like some cinnamon swirls to duck at Mrs. Briggs. Then 11 Timmy Jawbreakers to eat with those 3 kids.
Wow, I wonder which show is the odd one out.
You may have your wishes all next week on Cartoon Network.
But I know what would have been on my favourites list, the Ed, Edd and Eddy Christmas Marathon, which even came with its own Christmas carol.
Ed and Eddy and Ed and Ed, Ed and Eddy and Ed and Ed.
I'm gonna review every episode of the show one of these days. That's mainly it for the Christmas stuff, but cartoon theatre was still going strong back then, and in 2000, they were still only showing animated movies like Rover Dangerfield.
Rover Dangerfield.
I love my life in Las Vegas.
The hottest dog in Vegas.
You know, the one about the Rodney Dangerfield dog who some guy tries to drown and he ends up on a farm, and yeah, that's probably another review somewhere down the line.
Tune in to Rover Dangerfield Monday at 7 on the Best Place 4.
You can't forget about the blocks, of course, and the coolest one had to be Tsunami, with daily showings of Dragon Ball Z and Batman of the Future, known as Batman Beyond in the US.
Intense, pure adrenaline pumping, kick-out action. Tsunami just keeps getting stronger, and this time there is no mercy.
I only really watched Tsunami just for that amazing space aesthetic, but you can't deny how popular Dragon Ball Z was with kids at the time. The show even had its own promo, with narration by Tom Baker, of all people.
Unleash the power of your mind with Dragon Ball Z at www.cartoonnetwork.co.uk. Dragon Ball Z. Lego software. Your world, your rules.
Yeah, because that's who you call when you need to promote some Lego. Another thing to note is that Boomerang was only just starting around this time, being a sister channel for the classic cartoons from Hanna-Barbera and such.
Boomerang from Cartoon Network, every day from 6 in the morning to midnight. Contact your cable, satellite, or digital operator for details.
But how do you promote such a retro-tastic channel? With endless pain and suffering from Tom and Jerry, of course. That's the way to do it. Finally, there are some bumpers for the more contemporary shows of the time, like the Powerpuff Girls blasting through every roof in sight.
Let's roll!
The Powerpuff Girls, Tough on Crime, and buildings.
And this bizarre conversation between Johnny Bravo and Morocco Mole.
Mr. Bravo?
Oh, man. Who said that?
Can I give you a hand?
No thanks, dog.
I'm a mole.
Here, how about a swig of that pop pooch?
No, it's mine.
It's almost like a precursor to the crossover cartoons of the SETI era, only weirder.
Hey, dog. Catch.
I'm not a...
Well, it doesn't get much weirder than the last show on the tape, Courage the Cowardly Dog.
We interrupt this program to bring you Courage the Cowardly Dog Show, starring Courage the Cowardly Dog.
This is one of my all-time favorite cartoons, telling the adventures of a cowardly dog named Courage, who has to contend with all kinds of grotesque creatures and sinister beings.
What is it?
The setup is ingeniously simple, with Courage living literally in the middle of nowhere with his two owners, Muriel and Eustace.
Courage, you sound awful. How about a cup of hot tea with honey and a wiener?
Oh, forget the tea!
If you ever went over your grandparents' house as a kid, this kind of dynamic should be very familiar to you.
Muriel, where's my pliers?
Now, unlike Angela Anaconda, where everything is unpleasant to look at, Courage offsets its unpleasant array of monsters by having a very likable main character who's easy to sympathize with. Courage just can't catch a break. He's scared by everything, yet does his best to protect his owners from getting into harm. You can't help but root for him. In this episode, The Gods Must Be Goosey, the madness begins with the arrival of a singing goose god who's out looking for love and ends up falling head over heels for Muriel. I guess he likes his ladies on the mature side.
Muriel, if letters be in order, let them be in such order as to spell Muriel.
The idea is hilarious enough already, and it makes for an episode that's musical, poetic, and witty all at the same time, especially with the goose god going off on long romantic monologues through the whole thing.
Mortal woman, I am here to pronounce eternal love for you.
And you pronounced it perfectly.
Of course, Courage stresses himself silly trying to stop the goose from running off with Muriel.
That goose better not try to take Muriel away. It's true.
While Eustace completely ignores everything and just wants to fix his truck.
Who was that?
It was an admirer who offered me a field of flowers and his eternal love.
Oh, you seen my screwdriver?
There's romance for you. Finally, Courage manages to get his attention and... What? These tapes are cursed, aren't they? They're just cursed. I have to sit through half an hour of Angela Anaconda, but I can't even talk about one episode of Courage the Cowardly Dog. It's just wrong. And wait, how did we even get here? I started off talking about robots smashing into each other, then a Star Wars parody before a sports game, then people's veins clogging up, followed by brain-eating aliens, my nightmare for the next 6 weeks, and a goose trying to run off with an old woman. This has to be the weirdest mix of content that I've ever seen on a VHS tape. But that's why I love it. A very Merry Christmas to you all, and look out for more VHS tapes coming soon. Are you enjoying the series? Do you have any thoughts? What tapes would you like to see covered next? Let me know in the comments. Remember, you can vote for upcoming episodes in the community tab, and please like and subscribe to the Back to the Past YouTube channel for more outdated content coming soon.
Earthlings are so primitive. Theory of relativity. Ha!